If you're in the US and looking to buy a new bike from Trek or Specialized, we've got some bad news because as we feared, they're putting their prices up in the wake of the tariffs. So the current situation, because it has changed since the last time we spoke about this, in fact, it changed from the point where we recorded it to the point where it went out. The current situation is that all countries now face a baseline 10% on imports, but goods from China and Taiwan will be taxed at upwards of 50%. And as we previously mentioned, that is where a lot of bike manufacturing is currently happening. So what is the impact? Well, Trek has now told its US dealers it's raising prices across most of its models. This also applies to backdated orders, so stuff that they've ordered but haven't received yet. So basically, there's no getting around this. And if retailers are paying more, you can bet that that cost will be passed on to customers. We don't know yet the exact scale of the increases or how they'll vary from model to model, but the company said it's attempting to minimize the impact on entry-level models to keep cycling accessible, especially for new riders. Meanwhile, Specialized is going to add a new 10% tariff surcharge on some of its models. Specialized apparently indicated to dealers that they should pass on this surcharge to customers, and if you're buying from Specialized website directly, you'll also get hit with this charge too. You won't see it when you're browsing through the bikes. Instead, it'll be listed as an additional charge at checkout, much like how traditional taxes and other bits, shipping and stuff gets added on. And Specialized says it's doing it this way to avoid having to change marketing material or physical labels. Plus, it means they have the flexibility to amend it should government tariffs change.
We've obviously talked about this the last couple of weeks. We know that there is a lot of American brands which are manufacturing outside of America, and it was inevitable that there were going to be some tariffs coming in. I wasn't personally expecting them to be doing it with this method. So it'll be interesting to see how this evolves, how it changes. Obviously, Trump's stance is constantly evolving and changing as well. I think initially when I saw that Specialized were not changing their RRPs and their marketing material, I was like, well, they're just being cheapskates. However, they're essentially just hedging that it's going to evolve over the coming months, and therefore it makes sense to have a process that is changeable. It feels like it's one of those scenarios where we'll just see what happens.
Yeah, what we definitely haven't heard is anyone saying we're going to relocate our manufacturing to the US, which means, at least in the short term, it's always going to result in higher prices for the customer.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Some manufacturing you can't relocate to the US. I mean, there's certain things like, for instance, a radial bearing. The US could never produce that anymore. It would cost them billions and billions to invest in just getting the technology over and the manufacturing know-how to make it over there. And that's used in everything. Every single thing you can think of. Every car, every bike, printers, dentist equipment, everything needs a bearing in it.
Yeah.
You know, I love bearings, but yeah, it's just not possible.
No. Well, but this is the point, isn't it? Relocating is an incredibly complex and costly and time costly process.
Time bikes, I think, are, I don't want to say lucky, but they've actually done this quite a while ago. So they're opening their US factory now, but they also still have the European factory, which is quite clever. I know it doesn't help groups and stuff, but they can make their US frames are going to be made in US, and the rest of the world's frames are going to be made in Europe still. Mm-hmm. So that's your best of both worlds. You can kind of split it to the different places. I'm just assuming, obviously, for argument's sake, I think, well, you're going to see a lot of Campag on time in the US soon because, well, it's not made in the Far East still.
Yeah, so it's only 10%.
Campag's on the comeback now. So, yeah.
But Campag's made in China?
No, very little of it is.
Really?
Yeah, most of it is made in Italy and
no
Romania.
Way,
I want to
most
say.
of it. Only the top end.
No, they've got their factory still over there in Italy, yeah.
But isn't it only making the
Campag only makes top end at the moment.
Well, that's not exactly true. Like Ekar or whatever it's called. That will be made in the Far East. I reckon it'll be split. I don't know the exact ins and outs, but it'll be split between Italy and Romania.
Yeah, that's what it says.
Yeah.
On the internet.
Wow, way.
That's what I mean. We should make more sense to then start fitting that to bikes. Yeah.
Yeah. So elsewhere, State Bicycle have said they're likely to raise their prices by about 5%. Kids bike brand Early Rider has suggested it'll have to hike its prices too. Alternative strategies. I saw that Cycling Weekly is reporting that some brands are suggesting they may just limit what they release in the US market to try and manage it ultimately. Yeah, because obviously Sea Otter's just been on a big US bike expo, and that was kind of the very much the talk of the weekend is how our business is managing the tariffs, and it's either price hikes or limiting their releases at the moment.
It feels to me like potentially this is going to be the rise of the American secondary market because you know, if those prices do jump and they're already in many cases really high, you're going to start looking at secondhand bikes, which inevitably will go up in price as well, but it will potentially offer or the associated risks of buying on the secondary market will probably be much more appealing than buying new.
But we saw during lockdown that doesn't work because your secondhand bikes become easier to get hold of and there's more of them. And then all of a sudden, secondhand bikes become a lot more expensive. I mean, during the lockdown, people were making money on selling bikes, secondhand bikes. They weren't losing money. They were making money on selling their used bikes. But then what happens is then the new market slows down. And then when that gets stock again or people don't buy the new bikes because Specialized is stuck with loads of bikes, they then discount them heavily to get rid of them. And then all of a sudden, the used market plummets to the ground. It's just a massive seesaw that keeps going up and down, unfortunately.